Welcome to the Epic Games podcast. I'm Raxzilla. Have with me Pixel Kitty. How's it going?
Everybody. Everything's going great. Getting ready for E3. It's my first E3, so I'm pretty excited.
Yep, your first E3, and this is actually the first Epic Games podcast ever. Something that we're hoping to bring you guys pretty often, and we have a lot of good things coming up, especially this week for E3. We're fortunate to be able to talk to Maury Mountain, lead artist on Infinity Blade Dungeons today. How's it going, Maury?
It's going pretty good.
Cool. So, we've seen a little bit about Dungeons. There was a trailer back in March on Apple stage, and we've seen some press previews and things like that in recent weeks. But what can you tell us about Infinity Blade Dungeons?
Infinity Blade Dungeons is a new action-adventure RPG dungeon crawling game for iOS devices, and it's set a couple thousand years before Infinity Blade, the original Infinity Blade, and that's what it is.
So you mentioned it ties into the Infinity Blade story and universe. Who are you playing as in Dungeons?
So in Dungeons, you play as a character who's the apprentice to the master of the forge. You are learning the ways of being a blacksmith. You're learning how to make weapons. You're learning how to make the cool things that we're going to take into Dungeons and beat up monsters with.
Nice. Sounds awesome.
Cool. And you're actually showing a demo behind closed doors this week at E3. What can you tell us about what's in the demo? Can you walk us through it a little bit?
Sure. In the demo, you start out the character with a kind of a basic set of armor and a basic weapon that maybe as the apprentice you learn how to make a weapon, and it's kind of it's not the best axe in the world, but it's an axe and it works. So in the demo, the first level we have you run through and beat up some monsters, collect some treasure, get some loot, fight a cool boss, and then after wrapping that up, we go back to the forge, which is the main kind of hub of the game, and have the player create a new weapon. That weapon then they take back into the second dungeon and go beat stuff up again and finish the boss, and that's the demo.
So how does mining play a role in the game? I know you're forging weapons, so...
Right. In order to make your weapons, you got to collect the stuff to make the weapon. So one of the key components in going into the dungeons and not just beating things up, but also collecting ore and collecting resources to come back and build the weapons. So as you go into dungeons, you find cool stuff, and then you make cool stuff, and you get more cool stuff from it.
Nice.
So can you walk us through what the forging process is a little bit like? Because I understand that's a pretty big element within the game.
Sure. Yeah, the forging in Infinity Blade Dungeons isn't just I have the resources, I click a button, and I get a result. We wanted it to be really interactive, and we wanted the outcome to be a result of your skill. So as you play the dungeons and you collect your resources and you finally get enough to make your new axe or new hammer, when you come back to the forge, you take those resources and say, I want to forge this weapon. And then there's a little mini game where you're tapping blemishes on a metal bar in sort of a time as a bar passes across them. It's a little time-based skill game, and the overall game has a timer. And how well you do in that game gives you a better or worse weapon. Or not worse weapon, I'm sorry, a better weapon.
So on that note, I've got to play the demo a little bit, and at the end there's kind of a boss encounter. Can we expect more things like that? What kind of enemies?
Oh yeah, we definitely want to have bosses and things that take a while to fight. I mean, we're including a lot of cannon fodder type enemies and enemies that have more health, but then each level will have kind of a cool boss to fight, and they'll have more hit points, like just fun bosses and cool creatures.
Awesome.
Yes. Bosses are awesome.
So when I'm forging a weapon, depending on how I do through the skill game, will that change what the weapon looks like at all? Will it change the attributes of the weapon? What's sort of the difference that you'll see depending on how well you perform in the game?
I probably don't want to go into too many details of what the outcome of the weapon will be visually, but based on your skill level, like how well you do in the game, yeah, the weapon will. Like you could make an axe at first, like you just learned how to play the game, and the axe comes out and it does 10 damage. And you learned how to play the game a little bit better, and you figured something out, and you're like, oh, I know the timing now. So the second time you play it, you may do a little bit better, and your axe could have 12 damage. So as you actually improve and play the game and get really good at it, you can get perfect and awesome weapons.
Doesn't that also affect, like, depending on the weapon you forge, you know, you may get a different ability? I know in the demo, depending on which weapon you get, you have, like, new abilities. Can you tell us, like, what are some of your favorite abilities that...
Yeah, I'll talk about the abilities in the demo. We have a lot of abilities for the game, but in the demo we focus on, there's 6 abilities that we were showing. Some of the cooler ones are when you drag across the screen, the guy will go flying across and smash the enemies, and you can connect the dots between the enemies and do multiple chains.
String them together.
Yeah, it's really fun. And with the hammer, we have another move where instead of dragging the line to an enemy, you can draw a line and the hammer gets thrown. It's a really fun move.
Nice.
And in the demo, the one thing in forging, once you kill the bosses that you mentioned, that the bosses will drop these items that you can then put into the weapon and your abilities and power them up and make them like a super fire move or a super ice move, and make them really cool and crazy.
And flashy.
Awesome. So can you walk us a little bit through what that sort of progression is like in the demo when you start out with sort of your core basic weapon? You know, why do you want to sort of, grind it out and try to mine and then go into the forge?
So as you play, the enemies are going to continually get stronger. It's not very flat, so you have to continue to make your weapons in order to get better, and your forging is also tied to your character leveling, so you can kill enemies and get experience, and you can make a weapon and get experience. So as you are building these new weapons and getting better and they're doing more damage, it's helping you progress through the levels a bit more, and we do want to have parts in there where you hit a wall or you need to build a better weapon or you need to level, and not a hard wall, but it's like you have to keep building weapons in order to keep going, and that's your role as an apprentice, is always practicing your craft and getting better. And
cool. All right. Thanks, Maury, for taking the time to talk to us. Hope you have a good E3 week in LA. We're going to hopefully have Maury back on in the future to talk more Infinity Blade Dungeons. Also have some great content coming this week, more Epic Games content. So look out for that, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you then.
see you.